Hi, thank you for joining me today for this class on how to use Westlaw, deep research, and CoCounsel legal for business transactions. This class is just going to cover various examples of tasks that you may need to conduct and tools that you can utilize to use those. So the first task is that you are a junior attorney who was just staffed on a special deal. You will be tasked with conducting due diligence and taking the first pass at all transactional documents. Your senior attorney has told you that the deal will be structured as a reverse triangular merger. You're not really quite sure what that is, and you need to, first off, just get an understanding of what that might be. So there are two tools that you can use to just do a basic, let me figure that out. And so the first is under Westlaw Deep Research. And that is in the lower part of the screen. It's not the global toolbar, which is at the top. It is the new tab that you'll see in the middle of your screen. And I have just utilized the search of describe how a reverse triangular merger works, just a basic, simple question. You would click over on the lower right side and maybe tag some of the jurisdictions that you might want to get an understanding. I'm going to select Delaware, Florida, and Georgia. I will click save and then run my search. While that is going, I just want you to know that I always say utilizing AI research is a practice in patience because it is really digging down and trying to find you an answer. It's going to give you a full report. And so while I do that, I'm going to open up the home page again, and I'm going to click over to practical law and show you how you can also use practical law for business transactions. You can see here in the practice area listings that a lot of business transaction type projects are listed here, such as corporate and mergers and acquisitions, commercial transactions, corporate governance. We also have some things dealing with finance, such as bankruptcy and restructuring finance. And then again, you have your basic litigation, maybe even some labor and employment, but your business may also, also fall within some of these other areas as well. The link I want to show you here is over on the top right where it says search and summarize practical law. So I'm going to click on that, and that is the practical law AI tool. And so this is going to allow me to run a search utilizing my same search that I used just a second ago in Westlaw Deep Research. So I'm going to simply type my search out here. Just to see if practical law gives me anything different. Maybe it might give me something a little bit more structured. That is what practical law can do for you, is that it's going to give me kind of a checklist of information, a narrative about the subject that you're researching, link you to documents, clauses, maybe contracts, letters, and things like that, as well as leading you to primary law on Westlaw as well. So now I'm running that search, the same search, in search and summarize practical law. So I'm going to click back over onto deep research, and we do have a result here. So you can see my report over on the right side of the screen, as well as an outline of that report over on the left. You can hop to any of these sections just by clicking on the outline and just seeing what's here. And so I can see the Delaware statutory framework leading me to Delaware statutes, maybe a case. Same thing for Florida and Georgia. Here are some Georgia statutes. I'm even told that the research didn't uncover anything extensive in Florida, so maybe there's not a lot in Florida. Maybe I need to look at another jurisdiction, perhaps. It's also leading me to other content on practical law. So it's talking about public mergers, giving me some practice notes, some cases, additional commentary. And so this is just one way to get started. What I like about deep research is, particularly if I'm new to a practice area, I may not even really know where to start. And so I get this narrative back, this sort of story summary of information. I can glean a lot from this and maybe utilize some of this terminology in a case law database search or in a secondary source search and go on from there. There are a couple of tabs at the top that I wanted to highlight. The first is research steps. So it showed me what Westlaw Deep Research did behind the scenes. So I can follow up and maybe go to a particular database to see if there's anything else that I can dig out. It showed me the list of sources that were cited in the report. The next two are the ones that I really like is follow-ups. Maybe there's something else in reading the report that I may want to ask the report again and get a new report. And then this one is even, for me, what I really, really love about deep research. Again, maybe I don't know a lot about this topic and I'm not even sure what to put into the prompt yet. You saw that my search was pretty basic. Describe how a reverse triangular merger works. I don't know, but I'm trying to find out. And so here, enhance is Westlaw asking me more questions about the issue. So I might need to dig deeper or ask the attorney or the partner some additional questions to answer. I can answer, fill in these blanks, and then generate a new report. So that is how deep research works. And let's see what's happened with search and summarize. And very similarly to deep research, search and summarize, again, kind of gives me a little bit of a narrative, kind of an explanation of, what's going on and giving me a breakdown of a reverse triangular merger, linking me to documents in practical law that might be helpful. And so here we have public mergers overview, private mergers, merger agreements, and so on. Here I can also ask a new question or a follow-up about the results that came. So this is an easy way to get started if you just have a task to do and you're not sure how to begin, particularly for something like a business law transaction. They have a lot of terminology that you may not understand. And so this is an easy way to begin. All right, so I'm going to click back. I'm actually going to click back into practical law. And there are a couple of things in practical law that are also really useful. And that is, let me go back, sorry. You can see all of the resource types here that you can find in practical law. It can be a little challenging if you're just not even sure what's here. So in search and summarize practical law, you can ask search and summarize to try to find you a document. So you can just say, I need a practical law template, a letter of intent that All right, so I've typed in, I need a practical law template for a letter of intent that would be appropriate to use for an all-cash reverse triangular merger involving private equity buyers and a public company target. So this is something that I've been tasked to do. I've been asked to write a letter. And so here, this is just another option for me. And I'm going to see if there's anything in the resources of practical law that might be useful for me. In just one moment, we are going to hop into CoCounsel at the top of the screen, and I wanted to highlight all of the drafting options there for you as well. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and go back to the deep research page, and I'm going to click into CoCounsel. At the top, I'm going to use that button. I'll use the vertical ellipsis and open up that whole screen. I like the whole screen in front of me just simply because it's a little bit easier. All right, so here we go. I found these resources. Thank you, Practical Law. And it says letter of intent, private equity bids. And if I click into that, I can see what this document is and see if it would be useful. I could download this and it's going to show me just kind of how to build this letter. What I also really think is helpful for you in Practical Law is you'll see these little notes in between the text, and it's giving you additional insight into what this document has or what this information is telling you. This would not print out if I downloaded this. This is just for you to see, but it's showing me and teaching me a little bit more about each of those particular sections and what it should contain, why is it in here, and so on. So this is really important for you to take a look at. Again, if you're starting to learn about a certain practice area or type of document that you're using, you may need to look at these to see anything you might need to include or not include in the documents that you're using. So if you ever see these notes pop up in a document in Practical Law, go ahead and click on those. It's going to give you a lot of really good information, may lead you to additional information as well. So that is pulling up documents that could be helpful for you. Again, if I go back to Practical Law and then look at resource types, I can look at toolkits, standard documents, practice notes, anything that I am looking for. So I went to toolkits. I want to maybe go to mergers and acquisitions and see if there's anything here that might be useful. So I can kind of look through all of these to see what I might need. There's due diligence. Maybe I need to, get some background information and make sure I have everything that I need, and, making sure the deal making is going correctly. And so here we have due diligence for public mergers, due diligence for private mergers, and so on. So lots of different templates for agreements, organizational documents, merger and acquisition agreements, and so on. So again, lots of good information here to dig through and check through and see what might be here. It's just really a matter of opening up Practical Law and seeing what might be here. And then you saw that I just asked a simple question and I got one result, but it looked like it was a really helpful result. So again, no matter what you're looking for, if it falls within any of these practice areas, hopefully there'll be something in Practical Law for you. All right, so if I am in CoCounsel, I opened up CoCounsel. I could also ask that same question again. I'm going to open up all my chats. I actually pre-ran a couple of searches just simply for the purposes of time. So you're not just looking at my screen for several minutes at a time. So you can see here that I asked for the letter of intent. And it also, even if I was in CoCounsel, it is going to take me back to Practical Law. So you can do that here in CoCounsel as well. So I just simply asked the exact same question and it said, I found these resources. Here's a letter of intent for private equity bids, and it took me into Practical Law. So again, the search worked here as well. So CoCounsel is kind of like your legal partner, your legal assistant. And I'm going to go back to the main page. You can do a little bit of research in CoCounsel. It will take you to Practical Law. It will take you to Westlaw. It's not going to go outside either of those products. But one of the other things that CoCounsel does is it works with documents that you already have. And it allows you to utilize our CoCounsel library. So I clicked on library and you can see all of these different tasks that an attorney may need to do at any given time in their practice. And so I can select various tasks to do and upload my own documents to try to get that information. So if you were looking on the outline, I am now going to go into task 3. And I need to analyze statutory law on reverse triangular merger issues in Georgia, Florida, and Delaware. So I'm going to use AI jurisdictional surveys. So I will start typing that. And I can see this option here in the library. And it's going to pop open a prompt for me here. And it's going to say, I would like to run a jurisdictional survey. So it's going to ask me, what jurisdictions do I want? So I'm going to select them again. I will untag federal. I'm going to select Delaware, Florida, and Georgia. And I'm simply going to type, I will delete this prompt. Reverse triangular mergers, and I will click submit. So it's going to start running that for me, and I wanted to note something for you as I'm running this. So if you see here on the left side in the chat, this is where each of your searches appear. And depending on the prompt that you select in the library, your chats over on the left might be pretty basic in the chat like title. And so you'll notice that I actually ran this search earlier today and I changed my chat name. So you can click on the little ellipsis here and rename the chat if you wanted to do that. And so you would remember that this was a reverse triangular merger for Georgia, Florida, and Delaware statutes, just so that you remember that. And I can rename it, and it changed that out to that. So the next time I log into CoCounsel, I can go, oh, okay, that was for the reverse triangular merger search that I did looking for statutes. And so here I can see there's the Delaware information. I can see they don't define the term. Here are maybe some links to something in Delaware. And here is Florida. And then here is Georgia. So it's telling me there were no helpful results in this jurisdiction. So maybe there's nothing, maybe, I need to go back onto Westlaw itself, double check, maybe talk to a partner. But again, this is just giving me a quick start instead of having to go and track down print copies of a statute, or maybe I just want to be able to do this really quickly all at once. I was able to look through all of the statutory codes with one quick search. So this is what I like about AI jurisdictional surveys, is it allows me to search in statutes from multiple jurisdictions at one time. All right, so the next option that I have is I need to analyze some case law on the reverse triangular merger issues. So I'm going to click back on new and start a new chat. I like starting a new chat if I have a new task or a new search, just to keep my results simplified so I can quickly go back to something else that I'm looking for. There are two options in the library here that I am going to focus on. The first is IRAC analysis. So I can just simply type IRAC and find that. That will break down a case into IRAC format, issue, rule, application, conclusion, and just break the case down by each issue in IRAC form. I can also break cases down in opinion and holding and their effect on the case summary. So either of these options are a good place to start. As you can see, there are over 200 tasks and workflows that you can pick from. And again, I encourage you, just like I did in practical law, to just scroll through the list, just see what there's out there. You can maybe look by practice area if it's litigation you're interested in, maybe something transactional. You can look for a type of, task that you want to do. You want to draft something. You can see here any options to draft client letters. Maybe you need to create and build a timeline. So you can try any of these. I'm first going to use IRAC. And then I want to talk about where CoCounsel is getting the information. So remember, CoCounsel works with documents that you already have. Now, you can do a little bit of searching, just like I did with looking for that practical law letter of intent and the AI jurisdictional surveys. But a lot of times the tasks require you to upload something into CoCounsel so that it can do the work. So here I can see provide a thorough analysis of the court opinion in the style of issue, rule, application, and conclusion for every issue you identify. And it's telling me I need to upload a court opinion or opinions. So if I click that, I have a couple of options. I can upload from my own computer, or I can upload from a database that I've created on my own. I'll show you how to do that in just a moment. So I'm going to click from a database. So I've built out my own database in CoCounsel. You can see that I have several of them here. You can also see that many of my colleagues from Thomson Reuters have shared materials with me. And I created a database for this class called Business Transactions Documents. And I have a couple of cases here, Mesoscale and Western Standard. So I want to tell CoCounsel that I want to break these cases down into IRAC form. And it's going to start reading through them and breaking down those cases for me. You can see that it's going to take about 2 to 5 minutes to do that. Again, it'll show me the response time of how long it's going to take. So I'm going to hop back out. I'm going to go back to the home page. And over on the left side below all of your chats, you'll see an option that says databases. So this is going to show me all of the databases that I have on my password, things that I've created or that fellow Thomson Reuters colleagues have shared with me. Likely, if you clicked on this, there might be one that Thomson Reuters has shared with you, but unless you've created one and discovered how to do this, you likely don't have any. But if you click where it says Add Database, you can create your own database. So I can call this GERA Mergers Project, Mergers Memo, whatever it is that I'm working on, or whatever content I know is going to be in here. I can click Add Database, and then it's going to ask me to upload documents into this database. So I can click Upload Files. I can select files from my own computer, and I can just tag some of these and add these into that database. And now I have these on my password. So a couple of things that I would like to say is Thomson Reuters is not hosting these documents on our servers. We have someone that hosts this information. Also, no one has access to your password. I do not have access to your password. The school does not have access to your password. So unless you share these documents with someone, no one has access to these documents. So I did want to stress that. Another thing that is important to note is that CoCounsel is not learning from what you are doing. So no one else is really going to benefit from the searches that you're running and the research that you are conducting in CoCounsel or Westlaw Deep Research. So I did want to also acknowledge that as well. So it is building out my database. It's almost complete. Again, you can add quite a bit of information to your databases. I'm going to show you here in just a moment as soon as these are done. Quite a few there. These are a little bit bigger, so it's taking just a second here. Let me click back out. Let me see if I can hop back into all of mine. But you can see that I've created several with just a handful of documents. But as I scroll through, seeing some of the ones that were shared with me from Thomson Reuters colleagues. This one has over 175 documents. I can click next. It can host quite a bit of documents here. This one has 16,000 plus documents, 2,700, 3,000, and so on. So you can kind of see here just all the different kinds of projects that you can work on and things that you can do within CoCounsel with your materials. And you can see here criminal information, real estate, law review articles, failure to warn, slip and fall, so on. So again, your password is your password. When you do build out that database or when you do upload documents into a chat, you can see the types of documents that you can upload. All right, so here we have our two cases. You can see here in a grid format, each case for each of the issues that are in those cases in a grid format first, and then it'll break it down into sometimes it will also be in somewhat of a narrative form, but in this case, it just did it in a table for me. So again, just a nice, easy view of that. Then the next option, I am going to open up a new chat just to keep it separate. I'm going to go into the bulk opinion option. And so this is just a little bit different than the IRAC. Where the IRAC did issue, rule, application, and conclusion and broke it down issue by issue by issue in each of the cases. Bulk opinion summary is going to show me what the holding was and what the impact of that holding was on the case itself. So it does look a little bit different. So depending on what your task is, do you need to give a quick summary to your partner or your litigation team? Maybe they just want to read a paragraph or something. They only want to see just the holding of the case. And is it a good holding? Does that help you? That's a quick avenue to go. If you need a full breakdown of a really detailed case that had a lot of issues, a lot of things that were in front of the court, IRAC might be the way to go. So here I can see my various cases, what was the court's holding, and the effect of that holding on the case's decision. So here, just a little bit different of a grid format. All right, so the other options that I wanted to show you were reviewing and breaking down a complaint or a pleading. And so I'm going to go back to new and click new chat and go into the library. And the three options that I wanted to show you here are complaint analysis, argument and counter arguments, and authority analysis table. And so I'm going to type in complaint. And here we have complaint analysis. And it's going to ask me to upload a document. I could either upload it from my own computer or from a database if I wanted to do that as well. And it's going to start running that complaint analysis for me. So it's going to kind of break the complaint down, showing me, who the parties were, giving me possibly a timeline of events, giving me the relief that was sought. And then also the most important and helpful part are defenses to those claims that are being sought. So complaint analysis is something that would be really useful when you first are starting a project and you're needing to break the information down and hit the ground running with research. So that is complaint analysis. So I'm going to let that run. I'm going to start a new chat. And the next option is argument and counter argument. And this is going to give me summaries of my opposing parties' arguments with support from Westlaw's research. So I'm going to click attach, and I'm going to use my database again. So I can either use my own computer or I can use the databases that I've built out in CoCounsel. And I'm going to use my complaint. It's going to start running that, looking for arguments that were made in the complaint and what would the counter arguments be for those arguments. And again, supporting it with some Westlaw results. Now, the final option that I wanted to show you here, again, starting new, just to keep these results separate, is also one of my favorites, and it's the authority analysis table. So this is going to build me a table of citations that were cited in the document by the author or by the court, and showing me how that citation was used by the judge or the attorney. So I'm going to use a brief in this case. So let's say I have Western Standards brief, and I want to see what arguments they made, what citations they used, what documents, statutes, cases, regs, administrative decisions, anything that they've cited to, and then how they used it in their document. So let me go back to complaint analysis just to see if that's finished running up for me. All right, so here we go. So here we have a summary. So the filing information, the parties that were involved in the case, just a quick little overview. What were the main claims? What was the relief sought in the complaint? Again, here are the list of claims. So it was a breach of contract, a little bit of a description, who was involved, were any quick little facts, and again, the relief, $8 million. So again, not, pretty big claim. Again, any important timeline information that was mentioned, maybe hiring dates, dates of an accident or an incident, hiring, immigration, when was the contract signed, whatever is in the pleading, it will give you an event timeline of things that were filed and so on. So again, just another great little summary right here off the bat for you. And then here I can see this is the claim that was made for a breach of contract, and giving me kind of an overview and elements and related facts to breach of contract and the supporting information in the complaint about that. But then the best part for you are all of the affirmative defenses for that claim and supported information from Westlaw. So this would be an absolute way for you to get started on research for an attorney or a partner or a project that you're working on relatively quickly. So that is complaint analysis request, kind of one of my new favorite tools in the library. All right, so here we have arguments and counter arguments. And so here is this complaint. So it's very similar to complaint analysis in the sense of it's going to break it down a little bit for me. And so I just wanted to highlight the differences. So this gives me just a really quick narrative document summary of what this complaint was about. So it's a little bit more of a paragraph or a few paragraphs. And then it's showing me the 3 identified arguments here that were made in the complaint, and then cases that were used. So this would be a jumping off point for me to go and take a look at some of these cases. And then again, damages that they are seeking. So again, that's counter arguments and counter arguments. Again, I could rename that to whatever I want, arguments and counter arguments for that complaint or pleading, or so on, however I would want to change the name of that. And then finally, the table of authorities in the brief that I uploaded. So this is another amazing tool for you that just is a real game changer. So here is my brief, the authority that was cited, how it was used, and how the court treated it. So again, this is just another great quick tool to break a document down. Maybe you have a really, a good brief and you just want to break it down for the partner and be like, here's their brief and this is what they used and this is how they used it. Maybe we need to attack, Halpin, or maybe we need to go in and attack Lewis v. Ward and might need to go and key cite these cases and, look at negative treatment or their history or whatever other steps you want to take. So this is just another good avenue for you to take a look at. So I did want to highlight those. And so just a couple of other things that I did want to just remind you about. I'm back on the homepage, and if I click on library, as I mentioned before, there are 235 tasks, and so it can be a little bit overwhelming with the amount of information that's here. I just strongly encourage you, one, to play around with the ones that I've highlighted in this session, but also just take a look at other options that are here. There are so many that I think are really useful, even in business and, transactions, board meeting minutes summary, dealing with corporate governance and maybe dealing with contracts or leases and seeing if there are things about, drafting letters and comparing documents or comparing opinions and so on. So again, this is just a good jumping off point, some place to start and see what's out here that can help you. I did want to hop back onto Westlaw real quick, just to show you one other place that you can explore. Oh, I'm not sure why it's doing that. Maybe it signed me off. All right, so I'm back on. And the place that I wanted to also highlight for you is under content types in the middle of the screen, and it's the Business Law Center. So this also has a lot of great materials here, SEC filings, different forms that you may run into, Edgar information. Again, here's like all about mergers and acquisitions transactions, various forms and letters. And so this might be another place that you would just want to explore if this is a practice area that you were interested in post law school, or if you have a summer associate position and you're just trying to, catch up on some information, this might be a really interesting place for you to go to. All right, thank you so much, and I hope that this was helpful. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to email me if you are logged into the law school page where your name appears at the top just below. It says contact us, and you can click on that, and a link to my email is on that next page. So email me anytime. I have a general response time of 24 hours. I could be traveling, I could be teaching, so always give me at least a day to get back to you. It might be sooner, but give me at least one day and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Thanks so much, and I appreciate your time.